Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Suvig Sharma. I lead the sales for MongoDB in India, ASEAN, and Japan. I would like to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us here today. So, over the course of the next 15 odd minutes, essentially, I'm looking to cover three areas. One is share some observations we had from the last year and a half in the world's been going through a lot of challenges, and specifically the impact that we've seen in the retail space. Talk about how the MongoDB platform actually helps organizations overcome those challenges, and I'll round it off with a couple of use cases to see that in action. So, the last year and a half, everyone has experienced a pandemic like never before. It's impacted countries across the globe. It's impacted organizations across industries. When we talk very specifically about the retail business, one of the key impacts that we saw is it dramatically shifted how consumers today are interacting with retail organizations. And a cursory glance on Target's recent highlights from their performance in 2020 shows that more than 12 million guests became multi-channel shoppers in the last year. And what's interesting about that is a multi-channel shopper actually ends up spending 4 times more than what a store-only shopper would do, and 10 times more what a digital-only shopper would do. As a result of this, just in last year alone, the digital sales of Target grew by more than $10 billion. So it's no surprise that digital acceleration today is a very often discussed topic. And what the pandemic has actually really done, it's accelerated the digital interactions that consumers are having with organizations to unprecedented levels. And this is a trend that retail organizations believe will stay even after we come out of the pandemic when that happens. And the optimism is really driven by the fact that the way the consumer today is interacting with organizations has shifted dramatically. Consumers are now, they're not just using digital medium just to browse in for information, but are far, far more comfortable in actually completing transactions. And with the plethora of social and mobile, they're actually, there's an expectation of highly personalized experiences. And what this does is it actually puts the onus back on retail organizations to create those highly personalized experience, irrespective of where you're touching the consumer. It also places importance, and we heard a lot in the panel just before this around the importance of data and the fact to drive meaningful information out of data through real-time analytics, studying of micro, mini and micro trends and the macro trends. And importantly, it's for a retail organization, you can drive differentiation both from the consumer experience standpoint, but also right through the whole chain, from the supply chain to the last mile delivery, and driving really differentiations in all those areas. So the net of this is really that retail organizations are realizing more than ever before that the real competitive advantage is intrinsically tied to the quality and the experience of your software and applications and how well you're able to leverage data. So what does that really do for the competitive landscape? It changes it completely. Your next big competitor is not necessarily the large retail brick and mortar chain that's opening up in your region. It could be a small tech organization anywhere in the region that's building a very cool application that the consumer will immediately relate with. And what that implies is competitive advantage and real competitive advantage is not something that you can really buy off the shelf. You can sure buy a third-party product off the shelf, customize it a bit on the front end, but does that really bring a competitive differentiation for the business is a question mark right now. And hence, what it does is it makes the team and the developers that are building that competitive differentiation for your organization the number one priority for organizations. So now this kind of poses a very interesting challenge. So, you may think about, okay, let's start to focus on this area, build agile teams, start to look at microservices. But what most often organizations find out that all these initiatives that they're taking to become agile, to develop faster, to build new and new features gets constrained by the relational legacy database at the back end. And it really fundamentally comes down to the fact that, when you're dealing in tables, you have to have a very rigid schema. It's defined up front. Making changes on it is not that easy. And fundamentally, it doesn't match well with programming, with object-oriented programming, which is what most modern applications adopt. So you've got to take the object and break it down into tables. It doesn't match up very well. So let me try to illustrate the challenge through building a case at this point. So think about, you're trying to build an online store. You have a backend relational database on it. Very soon you start to realize the constraint on it. So then you say, okay, let me start to look at some accelerators out there. Think about different NoSQL technologies. Okay, I need to insert cache for speed. I may need a white column for some use case. I may need a key value for another use case. And suddenly you have 4 or 5 different copies of your data that you need to ETL from your relational database into these different accelerators. You start to realize that each one of them have some limitation around the ability to query into it. There's inconsistency in the data, and hence you still have the relational database at the back end, but you're ETLing and creating copies and feeding. It doesn't kind of stop there. So very soon, today most modern applications need some kind of full text search. So there comes another set of technology, more ETL. Net of it is you need more man hours just to maintain this. It's slower to build new features and start to make changes, costs more money to be able to do that. And again, you can expand on that because we just heard and learned that consumers today are actually interacting with you at various points and including from the mobile devices. So now you need to take the data to the edge. You need to have push technologies separate for iOS, separate for Android, messaging queue. Again, a little more complexity added to the whole piece. The speakers in the panel just before this talked about not just knowing about the operational data, but actually getting insights about consumer behavior, how the consumers are interacting with them, how are they consuming. So now you're thinking about analytics platform. Needless to say, every time you're adding all these components, more man hours added, more complexity, and just more cost. So very soon you kind of have this kind of a spaghetti architecture, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this that are listening in the audience today. And what this essentially means is now you have multiple copies of your data. Some of them are inconsistent because they depend on eventual consistency. It's just so much more difficult to make changes because you don't know a change you make at one end, what would break at another end. And it is just very difficult to manage. And this is essentially where MongoDB comes in as a flexible data platform to allow you to build and scale and make changes as fast and come up with new features very quickly. Today, MongoDB is the leading data platform for modern applications. It's based on the document model, built for distributed architecture, highly resilient, scalable, secure, and really designed for a true multi-cloud experience. So I'll go a little bit more in depth to just highlight and talk about those capabilities so that you can understand where I'm coming from. So really at the core is the document model. And the document model is a superset of all data models. So you can easily represent key value, column, relational, graph in the document model, and that thereby allows us to be general purpose. What the MongoDB platform also does is it retains the traditional strengths of the relational world, which is the expressive query language, secondary indexes, aggregating information, creating materialized view, and really to be able to get to insights very, very quickly. The other part of it is by default, it's a consistent MongoDB, the database, and also supports asset transactions, not just at the document level, but across collections, across shards. And importantly, for any mission critical app, security, enterprise grade security is paramount. And we are able to provide very high levels of enterprise grade security, allowing organizations to comply with the stringence of guidelines. But it doesn't end there. What is really exciting is you're able to combine those traditional strengths with what is required by the modern applications, namely a very simple, easy way to develop programs. So, you're able to have so many different and accommodate all the different data models, data structures. They're native idiomatic drivers for all the popular programming languages, over 30 languages out there. So your developers don't have to learn anything new out there to build those applications. From get-go, it's designed for scale and scale out architecture, allowing for distribution, allowing you to scale, but at the same time being highly resilient and highly available. And lastly, you get the freedom to run anywhere. So it could be on your laptop or in your data centers, including true multi-cloud experience across the 3 major public cloud providers. And also now with our latest acquisition of MongoDB REM, you can take the data to the edge, to the mobile devices. So, that's really how we're able to combine the strengths of both the worlds. And if I just hark back to that spaghetti architecture that I had shown a short while ago, you can actually just simplify it, with something like this. So on one end are all your data sources. So whether it's your point of sale devices, the stock management, inventory, your e-commerce mobile, mainframes, the flexible data model of MongoDB allows you to ingest all of that into MongoDB. And then on the other hand, through simple API and flexible APIs, can feed into the microservices that your teams are developing to be eventually consumed by the LOBs. Now, as I mentioned before, you can run MongoDB right from a laptop to the cloud. And on the cloud, we offer a database as a service, MongoDB Atlas, which is available on all the 3 public cloud providers and in a true multi-cloud environment where you can actually create clusters across those 3 cloud providers. And what really happens in this middle box, and this is how we are able to really simplify that architecture, is on a few clicks, you can actually just start and create your clusters to handle all the hot operational transactional data, allowing you to scale on a few clicks of buttons. We talked about real-time analytics. You don't need to create a separate infrastructure and ETL information and create copies of those data. You can simply just spin up an analytical node. Data is replicated in near real time into that analytical node. you can run off your analytical queries on it without putting any performance overhead on the operational layer. We natively provide the full text search capabilities as well. And then, not all data are hot data. You would have situations where you want to still store the cold data, and you get capabilities of data tiering onto a cloud storage object. And the beauty of it is you can actually run a single a federated query across your hot data and what you're storing on the cloud storage. You can extend that further to get inputs from other data sources and actually build out a data lake on the cloud. So, in a sense, you can hopefully see how this allows your team to really build simple, flexible architectures out there. I'm just going to spend maybe a couple of minutes on a couple of use cases to show how organizations are really bringing this into the real world. And these are just some recognizable logos that are leveraging our data platform as of today. We, again, because it's general purpose, support plethora of use cases across, right from product catalog to personalization engines to IoT, supply chain, last mile delivery. I'm going to just spend a minute talking about 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven, as we all recognize, is a leading stores. They're leading, stores around the corner. They interestingly have leveraged the platform both to enhance customer experience as well as drive efficiencies in the store. So a combination of Atlas allows them to take allows the consumer to interact with them at their point of convenience. And then by implementing MongoDB Realm and MongoDB Atlas, they've been, they've been able to connect more than 10,000 stores in America, and where the store managers can have up-to-date information on their mobile. And just round that up with another example that we are all familiar with, Pizza Hut, which has used the MongoDB data platform to create a consumer 360-degree view, which is really the backbone now, a single source of truth to drive the digital transformation. So with that, I hope I've been able to really showcase about how the challenges that we are seeing, how consumers are interacting today with retail organizations, and how the platform can be leveraged to meet those challenges.